I was never the type to believe in ghosts. I thought hauntings were just stories people told to scare themselves, shadows in the dark that our minds turned into monsters. But that was before I met her. It started 3 years ago on a highway stretch known as Dead Man's Pass. It was the kind of road truckers avoided at night, the kind with no streetlights and too many stories. But I was running late for my shift at the hospital, and I didn't have time for superstition. The first time I saw her, I almost wrecked my car. She stood on the side of the road, barefoot, wearing a pale dress that clung to her like it was wet. Her hair hung in thick, dark strands over her face, and she raised her hand slowly, palm up, as if asking for help. I slammed my foot on the brake before I even realized what I was doing. My heart pounded. I knew the stories. Everyone did. Don't stop for the girl on Dead Man's Pass. I stared at her through the rearview mirror, my breath hitching in my throat. And then, she moved. Not walked. Moved. One moment she was outside, the next, she was sitting in my back seat. My blood turned to ice. The air in the car grew thick, heavy, like I was breathing through a wet cloth. A chill crept over my skin, seeping into my bones. I could see her in the mirror now, her head bowed, hair covering her face. She didn't belong here. Where are you going? My voice was barely a whisper. She didn't answer. I gripped the wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. I wanted to turn around, to confirm she was really there. But something in my gut screamed, "Don't look." I forced my eyes back to the road. The silence stretched between us, thick and suffocating. My heart hammered in my chest, counting the seconds. Then she spoke. "Do you know what happened to me?" Her voice was small, distant. I swallowed hard. "No." A pause. Then, almost too soft to hear, "You will." The radio crackled. Static filled the car, growing louder, warping into something that sounded like breathing. I reached for the dial, my hand shaking. And then, the car slammed to a stop. The seat belt yanked me back as my tires screeched against the pavement. My breath came in sharp gasps as I struggled to understand what had just happened. The girl was gone. The back seat was empty. The door never opened. The air remained still. But on the passenger seat beside me lay a single, wet footprint. A chill ran down my spine. I turned my headlights back on, my hand still trembling on the wheel. But just as I shifted into drive, a whisper brushed against my ear. "Don't forget me." And then my phone screen lit up. A notification. A photo. I picked up the phone with numb fingers, my breath catching in my throat. The picture was of me, sitting in my car, driving down this road. But the girl was sitting in the back seat, smiling. My fingers went numb. The phone nearly slipped from my grasp as my pulse thundered in my ears. The photo was impossible. I was alone. I had been alone. But there she was, sitting in the back seat, her face half hidden behind her damp, tangled hair. But this time, she wasn't silent. She was smiling. A slow, eerie smile. I slammed the phone down on the dashboard, my breath coming in ragged gasps. This couldn't be real. And then, my phone buzzed again. Another photo. Hands trembling, I picked it up. My stomach twisted into a knot so tight, I thought I might be sick. The picture had changed. Now, she was closer. She was sitting directly behind me, her face tilted slightly, as if she knew I was looking at her. Her smile was wider now, almost unnatural. And then, my phone screen glitched. The picture distorted, the pixels stretching, warping, and for just a split second, something else flickered on the screen. Something that made my breath catch in my throat. It wasn't just her anymore. There was a road sign in the background, a warning sign, and it said, "Accident ahead. Turn back." A shiver ran down my spine. I forced myself to focus, gripping the wheel, trying to push down the rising panic in my chest. The road stretched ahead, empty and dark. But something inside me, some deep, primal instinct, screamed that I needed to stop. I slowed down. My headlights cut through the thick fog rolling across the pavement. And then, I saw it. Twisted metal, shattered glass, a wrecked car, its body crumpled like a discarded toy. The front half was completely destroyed, the engine still hissing smoke. And slumped against the driver's seat window was me. I couldn't breathe. My mind refused to accept what I was seeing. The man inside the wreck. He looked exactly like me. Same jacket, same watch, even the same phone, cracked and flickering on the seat beside him. I was staring at my own lifeless body. A sharp, icy whisper brushed against my ear. I told you. I turned, my heart pounding against my ribs. The back seat was empty. She was gone. My body trembled as I looked back at the crash. My twin, my corpse, remained frozen in that moment, stuck between life and death. A memory surfaced, a story I had heard years ago. Dead Man's Pass. The girl who haunted this road. She wasn't a lost spirit. She wasn't a vengeful ghost. She was a warning. The legend had always said, if you see her, if she rides with you, she's trying to save you. And I realized then, if I hadn't stopped, if I had ignored the signs, the photos, her whispers, that wreck would have been mine. I swallowed hard, my hands gripping the wheel. My reflection in the rearview mirror stared back at me, alive. A breath of cold air passed through the car, gentle this time. A final goodbye, and just like that, she was gone. But tell me, if she was only a warning, who took the photos? For the next few minutes, I just sat there, gripping the wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. My heart was still racing, my breath uneven. The wreck in front of me was still there. My body, or whoever that was still slumped inside. And yet, I was here, alive. I checked my phone again. The screen was dark now, unresponsive. No pictures, no evidence, just a dead device. I forced myself to move, stepping out of the car. My legs felt weak, almost like they weren't mine. The cold night air burned my lungs as I approached the wreckage. And that's when I heard it. A faint whisper, a voice, barely audible, carried by the wind. Don't look too long. Every instinct in me screamed to listen, to turn back, to run. But I couldn't. I needed to see. I leaned closer, peering through the cracked glass of the wrecked car. My pulse hammered in my ears. My reflection, my corpse, remained still. But something else caught my eye. Something behind me. The back seat. It was occupied. I couldn't see clearly through the shattered glass, but a shape sat motionless in the shadows. The same tangled, damp hair. The same dark, hollow eyes. The girl. But she wasn't looking at me. She was staring past me. At something else. Something standing right behind me. My breath hitched. A slow, paralyzing dread crept up my spine. I didn't want to turn around, but I had to. I turned, and I saw it. A tall, thin figure, standing just beyond the glow of my headlights. It was barely human, its limbs too long, its face distorted, stretched. The air around it seemed wrong, like it wasn't just standing there. It was watching, waiting. For what? For me? The girl's whisper came again, sharp and urgent. Run. My body reacted before my mind could. I stumbled backward, nearly tripping over my own feet as I sprinted back to my car. The engine roared to life. My hands were shaking as I threw into gear and hit the gas. The wreck, the twisted metal, the impossible sight of my own corpse. It all vanished in my rearview mirror. But just before the road curved, before the haunted stretch of highway disappeared behind me, I looked one last time, and standing there, in the middle of the road, was the girl. She wasn't smiling anymore. She was staring at me with something I hadn't seen before. Fear. I never drove that road again. I don't know if the wreck was real. I don't know if I really saw my own body that night. But sometimes, late at night, my phone buzzes, and when I check, there's a new photo in my gallery, a picture of my car, with someone sitting in the back seat, smiling.